Welcome to Sleepy Science. Tonight, I want to take you somewhere strange, a place on the map that looks normal but feels completely different from the rest of the world. The Bermuda Triangle, a quiet patch of ocean where ships are found empty, planes vanish in clear weather, and even radios and compasses begin to act like they're confused. You came here to relax and to finally learn the secret facts people almost never talk about. The things that make this mystery feel so real and so unexplained. So get comfortable, let your eyes get heavy, and let's explore this hidden place together. And before we begin, don't forget to subscribe for more sleepy mysteries. When people hear the name Bermuda Triangle, they often think of a mysterious place far away, a place in the middle of the ocean where strange things happen that no one can fully explain. But tonight, we will take our time and understand what this place really is, where it sits on the map, and why the whole world keeps talking about it even after so many years. And we will do it slowly in a soft, peaceful way, so your mind stays calm while your curiosity stays awake, just enough to follow the story. The Bermuda Triangle is not a marked place. There are no signs, no lines, no borders you can see from above. It is not written on maps with bright colors. It is simply a large part of the Atlantic Ocean between 3 points: Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. If you connect these points, you get a shape like a triangle. Inside this shape, something unusual has been happening for over 100 years. Ships have gone missing without sending any warning. Planes have disappeared even though the weather looked fine. And many people who entered the area said their tools stopped working normally, as if something in the air or water was playing with them. That is why this place earned the name the Bermuda Triangle. But many people also call it the Devil's Triangle, because the things that happen there feel too strange and too hard to explain. Even scientists who study the sea every day cannot agree on one answer. Some things can be explained by nature, but other things still feel like questions without an end. Tonight, before we explore the deeper secrets, we need to understand one important fact. This part of the ocean is huge. It covers more than 500,000 square miles. It is not a small zone. It is big enough to hold many islands, deep underwater valleys, powerful ocean currents, and sudden weather changes. And the bigger a place is, the more stories it collects. Some of these stories are simple accidents, but some are so strange that even experts still read them again and again, trying to find clues they might have missed. For example, long ago, sailors would travel through this area and write in their journals that their compasses spun in odd ways, pointing in directions that made no sense. They often felt confused because the open sea looked peaceful and normal, but their tools acted like they were being pulled by something unseen. This made them feel lost even when the sky was clear. And when you are in the middle of the ocean, feeling lost is one of the most frightening feelings in the world. Imagine being on a ship many years ago. No GPS, no modern radar, just simple tools, simple maps, and the endless sea in all directions. Imagine you look at your compass, and instead of pointing north like it should, it points somewhere else, like it is being controlled by an invisible hand. You look at the sky and the weather seems fine, but something feels wrong. This is the kind of quiet fear sailors often talked about, a fear that does not shout, it whispers. And it is these whispers, these small strange moments that started building the mystery. But the world truly began paying attention when the number of missing ships and aircraft from this area became too much to ignore. Some of these disappearances had no wreckage, no bodies, no clues at all. It was like the sea simply swallowed them whole. And because no one could explain why it happened, people began creating their own ideas. Some believed it was strange weather. Some believed it was strong ocean currents. Some believed it was something supernatural. And some believed it was a secret of the earth itself, hidden beneath the water. Even today, many people feel differently about it. Some are fully convinced that something unusual lives in this area. Others think it is nothing special, just a busy part of the ocean with many ships passing through. But here is the interesting thing. The mystery remains strong because even with all our modern technology, even with satellites and underwater sensors, there are still cases that feel too strange to label as simple accidents. This is why the Bermuda Triangle has earned so much global attention. It is not just about the missing ships or the lost planes. It is about the feeling that something in this area does not follow normal rules. Humans like to understand things. We want answers, but the triangle gives more questions than answers. And this makes people return to its story again and again, hoping one day the truth will appear. Many documentaries, books, and research studies have tried to explain this mystery. Some have good theories. Some have wild theories. Some say the sea floor might release gas that could make ships unstable. Some say strong winds or tall waves could hit suddenly. Some say the Earth's magnetic field acts strangely in this zone. And some people believe the truth is even bigger than science. But no matter how many explanations people share, there is always a part of the story that feels unfinished. When a place cannot be fully explained, it becomes even more interesting. It becomes like a puzzle with missing pieces. And that puzzle sits quietly in the middle of the ocean, waiting for someone brave enough to solve it. Think about this. Every year, millions of ships and planes pass through this area safely. Yet the stories of the strange ones are so powerful, they make the safe journeys feel invisible. People forget how many normal trips happen because the unusual ones shine brighter. They stay in your mind. They make you wonder, why them? Why there? What really happened? And that wondering, that quiet voice in your mind that keeps asking for more, is exactly why this mystery has lived for so long. Some experts say the Bermuda Triangle is not as dangerous as people think. Others say the numbers do not tell the full story. But you are here tonight not for the simple explanations. You are here for the secret facts, the rare details, the things that make this place feel mysterious even after so many years. And as we go forward, you will see that the stories inside this area are not just events. They are pieces of a much larger and much stranger puzzle. So as you relax, just let your mind imagine that wide empty sea, the soft waves, the deep blue water, and the invisible questions floating above it. The world has many mysteries, but this one stands out because it feels so close to us. A place on our own planet that still feels like it hides something. What is inside the Bermuda Triangle? Why do things happen here that don't happen anywhere else? And what secrets have been waiting under that dark water for all these years? We begin answering those questions now, step by step, slowly and calmly, as the story continues. Long before the world called it the Bermuda Triangle, long before newspapers printed scary stories, and long before people started sharing theories, there were sailors who quietly disappeared in this part of the ocean. Their names are mostly forgotten now, but their stories became the first puzzle pieces of this mystery. These early vanishings are important because they created the very foundation of the triangle's strange reputation. And when you hear them, you will understand why so many people still wonder what is really happening here. To imagine these first disappearances, you need to picture a time when the ocean was the main road of the world. Ships moved slowly. Navigation was simple. There were no satellites in the sky, no radios sending signals, and no fast way to call for help. A ship that left the harbor often disappeared from sight for weeks or months. Families waited at home, hoping the sailors would return with goods, stories, and money. This was a time when the ocean felt much bigger than it feels today, and much more dangerous. One of the earliest disappearances that historians talk about happened in the 1400s, during the time of explorers. Sailors from Spain and Portugal began traveling farther across the Atlantic, looking for new lands. Some of these sailors wrote in their logs that the ocean near Bermuda behaved strangely. They spoke about unusual lights in the sky, sudden storms that came out of nowhere, and waters that seemed rough even when the wind was soft. These were small clues, tiny, quiet warnings, that something odd lived in this part of the ocean. But the real mystery began to form in the 1500s and 1600s when ships vanished without any clear reason. One well-known case was the ship Rosalie. It was found floating peacefully with no people on board. The sails were still up. The cargo was untouched. The ship looked healthy, almost like the crew had simply walked off the deck and disappeared into thin air. There were no signs of a fight, no signs of a storm, no signs of panic, just silence. A silent, empty ship on the open sea. That image alone can keep someone awake at night, wondering what could make an entire crew disappear so quietly. Another early case came from a Spanish treasure fleet. These ships were filled with gold and silver from the New World, and they traveled in groups for safety. But one fleet was hit by a sudden force that destroyed multiple ships at once. Some people believed it was a massive storm. Others said it felt too fast, too strong, too unusual. The sea swallowed the ships so completely that rescuers found almost nothing. Even today, people say this was one of the first signs that the Bermuda Triangle had a strange way of hiding its secrets. As time moved on, more and more ships passed through the area, and more strange stories followed. In the late 1800s, the Ellen Austin became one of the most famous early mysteries. The crew of the Ellen Austin found an abandoned ship floating in the triangle. It looked fine, with no sign of damage. They decided to put some of their own men on board and sail it to safety. But something unbelievable happened. The two ships became separated in the fog, and the second ship vanished completely. When it was eventually found again, the men who boarded it were gone. Every one of them. No clue. No reason, just an empty ship for the second time. This story became one of the early warnings that the Bermuda Triangle was not like other parts of the ocean. People began saying that if a ship became empty here, something truly strange must be happening. Some sailors refused to enter the area, while others entered it with a quiet sense of fear. The ocean looked calm, but their hearts felt uneasy. That kind of fear does not come from imagination alone. It comes from real events, real losses, and real questions. Another important early disappearance happened in the 1800s with a British ship called the HMS Atalanta. It sailed into the Triangle and never returned. More than 250 people were on board. Investigators searched for months, but they found nothing. No wreckage, no floating wood, no signs that the ship had ever existed. Imagine losing a ship of that size with so many people and finding zero evidence afterward. It felt impossible. And when something feels impossible, people start believing that something else must be behind it. The ocean is deep and strong, but it usually leaves traces when something sinks. Yet in the Bermuda Triangle, so many early disappearances ended the same way. Silence, emptiness, and no proof. This pattern made the area famous long before airplanes were invented. Sailors shared stories quietly at night, saying things like, "Don't go too close to that place," or "The sea there is different." These whispers slowly formed the early legend of the triangle. As the years continued, newspapers began reporting these vanishings more openly. Some stories were exaggerated, some were not, but every new disappearance made the area feel more mysterious. And even today, when you read reports from that time, you notice something unusual. The weather was often reported as calm before the ship vanished. Calm water, clear sky, no reason for trouble. And this is one of the strongest hooks in the whole triangle story. Things disappear even when everything looks normal. Scientists today often try to explain these early disappearances. Some say the weather changed quickly. Some say the ships were weak. Some say the sea floor in that area is too deep, making wreckage impossible to find. But even with these explanations, something about the early vanishings feels strange. It is the how. If a storm hit, why was no debris found? If pirates attacked, why was cargo untouched? If a ship broke apart, why did no one survive? These questions make the early stories hard to ignore. These early disappearances shaped the world's view of the Bermuda Triangle. They created the first layer of the mystery. They made people believe that this was not just a normal part of the sea. And they built the idea that the triangle had a hidden side, a quiet, invisible force that could make something vanish without leaving a trace. Tonight, you heard the beginning of the mystery, the early stories, the first warnings, the small signs that something was not right. But these were only the start. The next stories became even stranger, with more people involved and more evidence missing. And one of the most famous cases of all time changed everything. Out of all the strange disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle, one story stands above the rest. One event that made the whole world stop and pay attention. It is the disappearance of Flight 19. Many people say this case is the moment the Bermuda Triangle became a true mystery, not just a group of old sea stories. And once you hear what happened, you will understand why it changed everything. Flight 19 took place on December 5, 1945, just after World War II. These were trained Navy pilots, not beginners, not travelers, not people who easily panicked. They were skilled men who knew how to fly, how to stay calm, and how to follow orders. That day, they were flying 5 planes on a simple training mission off the coast of Florida. It was supposed to be an easy flight. Clear instructions, good weather, nothing unusual. But something unexpected happened. As the planes went deeper into the area now known as the Bermuda Triangle, their instruments began acting strangely. Radio messages became confusing. Compass readings did not make sense, and the pilots started reporting that they didn't know where they were. These were men trained to handle stress, yet even they could not understand what was happening around them. One of the last clear messages recorded from the leader of the group was something that still sends chills across anyone who hears it. Everything looks wrong. Even the ocean looks strange. Those words alone became one of the most haunting lines in aviation history. What does it mean when the ocean looks strange? What did he see? No one knows. And that unanswered question became a powerful hook in the story of the triangle. After that message, communication grew weaker. The pilots tried to turn back, then tried again, but their compasses kept pointing in opposite directions. Imagine the fear and confusion in that moment. You're trained, you're skilled, you trust your tools, and suddenly none of them work. The sky looks the same, the sea looks the same, but the world around you doesn't match the map anymore. More radio messages came in, but they were difficult to understand. One pilot said he couldn't tell east from west. Another said they were completely lost. These messages weren't dramatic or emotional. They were calm, controlled, professional. And somehow that makes them even more frightening. It means something serious was happening, something beyond normal problems flyers face. As time passed, the sun began to set. Fuel began to run out. The pilots said they would try to stay together, but after that, their voices slowly faded. At 7:04 p.m., radio contact was lost completely. 5 planes, 14 men, gone. The Navy reacted immediately. They sent out rescue teams, including a huge search plane with 13 men on board. This rescue plane flew into the same area and also disappeared. No radio call, no sign of trouble, no distress signal. It vanished as completely as Flight 19. Now 27 people were missing. The ocean was searched for days. Ships, planes, divers, everyone was looking. But not a single piece of wreckage was found. No floating debris. No oil on the water. No parts of a plane, nothing at all. It was like the sky had opened and swallowed the planes whole. This was not normal. Even in big accidents, there is usually something left behind. But here, the ocean gave nothing back. That silence, that emptiness, made this case famous around the world. People began to ask questions that had no easy answers. How could 5 planes vanish at the same time? Why did their instruments fail in clear weather? How could a rescue plane vanish too? Why was no wreckage ever found? Investigators tried to explain what happened. Some said the lead pilot may have mistaken one set of islands for another. Some believed they flew too far out and ran out of fuel. Some said they may have crashed into the sea during nightfall. But even if they crashed, where are the remains? How could 6 planes vanish so cleanly? Why were the radio messages so strange? The official Navy report at first said the disappearance was caused by unknown reasons. Later, they changed the wording, but that first line stayed in the public mind. Unknown reasons. 2 small words that made the case feel even more mysterious. People also pointed out something unusual. The area where the planes went missing is not extremely deep compared to other parts of the ocean. It is deep, yes, but not deep enough to hide 6 planes forever. Wreckage from other crashes in the same region has been found before. So why not this one? This is where the theories began. Some people said magnetic forces in the area might have confused the plane compasses. Some believed unusual clouds or fog might have surrounded the pilots. Some talked about underwater gas, strange waves, or sudden weather changes. And still others believed the cause was something beyond nature, things like portals, energy fields, or unknown forces. Nobody could prove anything. Even today, Flight 19 remains one of the greatest mysteries in aviation history. It is studied in schools, documentaries, and military records. Many experts still try to solve it, using modern tools and knowledge. They run simulations, study ocean floors, check old radio logs, and even scan the sea with underwater robots. But the results remain the same, no solid answers. And every time someone thinks they discovered a clue, another question appears. Why were the last messages from the pilots calm? Why did all compasses fail at the same time? Why did the ocean look strange? Why did the rescue plane vanish too? Flight 19 became the case that changed everything because it showed the world that the Bermuda Triangle might be more than old sailor stories. This event took place in modern times with trained pilots, working radios, and organized rescue teams. It was not a myth. It was not a legend. It was real. And yet, after all these years, there is still nothing to show where those men went. Some families of the pilots say they believe something unusual happened that day. They don't know what, but they feel it was not a normal accident. Some investigators say the weather reports don't match the pilots' confusion. And the fact that not one piece of wreckage has ever been confirmed makes many people believe the triangle has secrets that we still don't understand. Tonight, as you listen, let your mind imagine the sky darkening, the radio voices fading, the ocean stretching endlessly below, and the quiet mystery of 27 lives simply disappearing into the unknown. Flight 19 is more than a story. It is the moment the world realized the Bermuda Triangle might be hiding something deeper than we ever expected. Long before airplanes disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle, the ocean itself was already keeping secrets. The triangle has taken ships of every size, small boats, giant cargo ships, and even military vessels built to survive tough conditions. And what makes these cases so strange is not just that the ships vanished, but how they vanished. Some left behind no debris, some left behind no signals, and some simply disappeared in calm water with calm skies and calm radio messages. Tonight, two of the most famous cases will help you understand why the world still stares at this patch of ocean with quiet confusion. One of the most mysterious cases is the USS Cyclops. This was not a small boat. It was a massive Navy ship, more than 500 feet long, carrying over 300 people. It was strong, modern for its time, and built to handle long trips. In March 1918, the Cyclops was returning to the United States from Brazil. The weather was normal. The sea was calm. Everything seemed just fine. But somewhere between Barbados and the East Coast, the ship disappeared. No distress call. No SOS message. Not even a single piece of floating debris. Imagine something that huge, bigger than a football field, full of steel and supplies, simply melting into the ocean without a sound. Families waited, hoping the ship would appear at another port. The Navy searched thousands of miles of water, but nothing was found. Even today, the exact spot where the Cyclops disappeared is still unknown. When investigators checked the ship's final reports, they found nothing that suggested danger. The captain said everything was normal. The engines were working. The ship was stable. The cargo was secure. There was no sign of trouble. And this calmness is what makes the story so chilling. How does such a large ship vanish without warning? Some people believe the ship may have been hit by a sudden wave or storm. But weather records do not show anything unusual at the time. Others believe the ship might have sunk due to structural problems. But if that were true, there should still be wreckage somewhere on the ocean floor. And yet no trace has ever been found. Even more mysterious, the Cyclops had two sister ships called Proteus and Nereus. Years later, both of them also disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle. Three giant ships from the same family, all gone in the same region. No answers, no remains, just silence. This strange pattern left many experts wondering if the triangle holds something deeper than weather or mechanical failure. The next case is just as unsettling. The Marine Sulphur Queen was a large tanker ship, carrying molten sulfur inside heated tanks. It was strong, modern, and watched carefully because of its risky cargo. In February 1963, it sailed from Texas toward Virginia. Everything appeared normal when it left the harbor. But days later, the ship stopped responding. After a search, only a few pieces of debris were found floating in the water, nothing that could explain what happened. No hull pieces, no large wreck, no trace of the crew. 44 men were on board and none were ever found. Investigators tried to understand the few scraps of evidence they had, but none of it told a full story. Some experts suggested the cargo might have caused an explosion. But if an explosion happened, there should have been a huge amount of debris. Instead, only tiny fragments were found, and even those pieces did not show signs of fire. Others suggested that the ship may have broken apart due to structural weakness. But again, that theory still doesn't explain the near-total absence of wreckage. A ship that breaks apart should leave large sections floating, yet the ocean was almost completely silent. The Marine Sulphur Queen's final radio message was also normal. There was no sign of worry, no sign of confusion, no sign that the crew knew anything was wrong. That quiet, calm communication is one of the strongest hooks in this story. Whenever something terrible happens at sea, there is almost always a signal. But here, nothing. Over the years, divers and researchers have searched for the Sulphur Queen many times. Advanced sonar, underwater scans, and mapping tools have all been used, but the ocean never gave them answers. It is as if the ship stepped into a place where evidence cannot survive. The Bermuda Triangle has many stories like these, cases where ships left the harbor, sent out a few normal reports, and then simply vanished into the open sea. Some ships were found empty. Some were never found at all. Some left behind clues that only made the mystery deeper. One case involved a cargo ship that was discovered with all its lifeboats still attached. If the crew had panicked, they would have used the lifeboats. But they didn't. It looked like the entire crew disappeared suddenly, without a moment to react. Another ship was found with food still cooking in the kitchen and personal belongings untouched, like the crew had just stepped away for a second and never returned. These strange details made people believe something more than storms or human error could be at play. And every time experts tried to explain a case, they ran into the same problem. The explanations didn't match the evidence. If the weather was calm, what caused the ship to disappear? If there was mechanical failure, why was nothing found? If the crew abandoned ship, why didn't they use the lifeboats? If the ship broke apart, where are the large pieces? Every answer led to another question. And that is why the ship disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle became so famous. They aren't just sad events, they are puzzles missing all their middle pieces. Some theories try to explain them using science. Maybe underwater earthquakes called seaquakes shook the ships. Maybe sudden waves, known as rogue waves, hit them with huge force. Maybe deep ocean trenches swallowed the wrecks. These ideas are possible, but none fully match the facts. Other theories go farther. Some people believe the triangle has magnetic problems that confuse instruments. Others think methane gas from the ocean floor might weaken ships. And some believe the region has strange energy fields or unknown natural forces that modern science cannot yet understand. Whether these ideas are true or not, they all share one thing. They try to explain the unexplainable. Tonight, as you listen, imagine the silent ocean at night. A giant ship cutting through calm water, stars overhead, the crew moving smoothly, unaware of anything unusual. Then imagine how suddenly everything can change, and how the sea can hold a secret so tight that even decades later, the truth is still missing. The stories of the USS Cyclops and the Marine Sulphur Queen remind us that the triangle is not just a place on a map. It is a place where normal rules sometimes seem to disappear. A place where size, strength, and skill do not guarantee safety. A place where silence can swallow even the largest ships. When people think about mysteries in the Bermuda Triangle, they often imagine strange forces or invisible powers. But sometimes, the truth can be just as mysterious as the legends. One of the most surprising things about this place is how quickly the sky and the sea can change. The weather here is not like normal weather. It can be calm one moment, and then, without warning, everything turns wild. And the people who travel through this area often say the same thing. It happened so fast, we didn't even know what hit us. This makes the triangle different from other parts of the ocean. Not because storms don't happen elsewhere, but because here, they sometimes arrive out of nowhere, almost like they were hiding. And that sudden change is one of the biggest reasons so many strange events happen in this region. When we look closer at the weather here, we start to see that even natural things can feel mysterious if they act in ways we can't predict. One of the most fascinating weather events in this area is the sudden storm. These storms don't build slowly or give gentle warnings. Instead, they appear like someone flipped a switch in the sky. A ship captain can be looking at clear blue skies, and within minutes, heavy clouds roll in, lightning cracks across the air, and waves rise like mountains. Imagine being in the middle of the ocean with no land in sight, and the peaceful sea suddenly turns into a dark, loud, shaking world. Anyone caught in a storm like that would be terrified. And in the Bermuda Triangle, this kind of storm is not rare. But there is something even more shocking. Scientists discovered that this region can also create giant, powerful waves that seem to come from nowhere. These are called rogue waves. They are not normal waves. A normal wave might reach 2 or 3 meters, but a rogue wave can reach as high as a building. These waves rise suddenly and fall just as fast. Many large ships, even huge ones made of steel, cannot survive a rogue wave if it hits at the wrong angle. Some people now believe that at least a few disappearances in the triangle might be because of these huge, sudden walls of water that strike without warning. Just imagine a ship sailing calmly at night, lights glowing softly, engines humming, sailors talking quietly on deck. Everything feels peaceful. And then, a wave taller than the ship rises out of the darkness. There is no time to turn, no time to prepare. All anyone sees is a massive wall of water coming closer and closer. If something like that hit a ship, the ocean might swallow it in seconds. It sounds unbelievable, but the science behind rogue waves is real. Satellites have even captured images of them. And the Bermuda Triangle is one of the places where they are most likely to appear. But the sea is not the only thing acting strange in this area. The sky has its own mysteries too. One of them is something called a waterspout. A waterspout is like a tornado, but it forms over the ocean instead of land. Imagine a spinning tower of wind and water rising from the sea and climbing into the clouds. It looks like something from a dream or a nightmare, depending on how you see it. These waterspouts can move fast, twist violently, and create huge damage if a plane or ship comes near them. Now imagine a pilot flying low over the ocean, trying to guide his plane through calm weather. Suddenly, he sees a thin rope of cloud dropping down toward the water. Then it begins to spin. In moments, it becomes a tall, swirling column, a waterspout. Pilots say these are incredibly hard to see until you're very close. And in the Bermuda Triangle, waterspouts appear more often than in many other places in the world. If a plane got too near one, it could be tossed around like a toy. It's not hard to imagine how a waterspout might make a plane disappear without leaving much behind. There is still another strange weather event found in this area, one that might be the most dangerous of all. It is called a microburst. A microburst is a sudden blast of air that falls straight down from a cloud, hits the ocean's surface, and spreads out in every direction at extreme speed. It's almost like the sky is throwing a giant hammer downward. Pilots who experienced microbursts say the wind hit them so fast and so hard that their plane felt like it was being pulled straight down. What makes microbursts even more frightening is that they are nearly invisible until the moment they happen. A plane can be flying smoothly, everything feeling normal, and then, in seconds, the wind grabs it like a hand pulling it downward. In older times, When planes did not have the advanced technology we have today, pilots had almost no warning. Many experts think at least some of the planes that vanished in the Bermuda Triangle may have been caught in microbursts so strong that they couldn't climb back up in time. Imagine being inside a small plane, the window beside you showing nothing but peaceful clouds. You take a deep breath, feeling calm, maybe even a little sleepy. The pilot's voice is relaxed. Everything seems normal. Then suddenly, the entire plane shakes, drops, and the wind roars louder than anything you've ever heard. A microburst is one of those things that can change everything in a single moment. One of the strangest things about the Bermuda Triangle's weather is how many of these rare events happen in the same region. Sudden storms, rogue waves, waterspouts, microbursts. It's like this part of the world is a perfect meeting point for all the most powerful forces of nature. And because everything can happen so fast, it explains why so many ships and planes never had time to send out a final message. In many cases, radios stayed silent, not because something supernatural stopped them, but because nature moved faster than anyone expected. Even today, sailors and pilots respect this region. Modern weather radar makes it easier to see storms forming, but even with modern tools, the triangle still surprises people. The ocean here is warm, which gives storms extra energy. The wind patterns are complex. The underwater terrain shifts suddenly from shallow to deep. All these things create a special mix that makes the weather here more unpredictable than in most places on Earth. And while science explains a lot, there is still something almost magical about how quickly things can change here. One moment calm, the next filled with wind, waves, and swirling clouds. Even knowing the science doesn't take away that feeling. That sense that this part of the world holds secrets that most people never get to see. If you close your eyes for a moment and imagine the open ocean at night, the soft sound of waves, the cool air, the stars above you, and then picture a sudden storm building in minutes, you can almost understand why the Bermuda Triangle became one of the most mysterious places on Earth. When people talk about the Bermuda Triangle, one of the first things they mention is how compasses start acting strange. This idea has been repeated for so many years that many think it's just a story. But the strange part is that pilots and sailors have reported real problems, real confusion, and real moments where their instruments behaved in ways they could not explain. And when you mix that with the deep quiet of the ocean, it becomes one of the most mysterious pieces of the puzzle. A compass is a very simple tool. It always points toward magnetic north. It has one job, and it usually does it perfectly. But in certain places on Earth, something unusual happens. The compass needle does not point exactly where you expect. This difference is called magnetic variation. Most of the world has some variation, but the Bermuda Triangle has moments where the variation becomes stronger or changes faster than normal. That tiny difference may not sound like a big problem, but if you are flying a plane or guiding a ship in open water, even a small mistake in direction can lead you far off course. Now imagine being a pilot flying through calm blue sky. You look at your compass and it suddenly shifts a few degrees. You tap it gently, thinking it might be stuck, but it moves again and again, almost like it's confused. Pilots in the Triangle have reported this exact moment. Their compass spinning slightly, wobbling, or pointing toward a direction that makes no sense. And it doesn't happen slowly. Sometimes it jumps, like someone tapped the world itself and made its energy shake. Sailors tell similar stories. You can picture a sailor standing at the wheel of a quiet ship at night. The water is dark and still. The stars are clear above him. Everything feels peaceful. He glances at the compass and notices it pointing a little more west than before. He watches it for a minute, thinking the ship might have turned. But no, the compass moves again, this time in the opposite direction. Suddenly, north doesn't look like north anymore. That feeling of being lost, even for a moment, is enough to make anyone uncomfortable, even experienced captains. One story told by a group of sailors described a moment where every compass on their ship behaved differently. One pointed north, another slightly east, another slowly spun in a circle. They checked their systems again and again, thinking something was broken. And then, just as quickly as the chaos started, all the compasses corrected themselves at the exact same time. The men didn't see anything around them. No storm, no lightning, no waves. But something invisible had passed through the area, something strong enough to confuse every navigation tool they had. It's moments like these that make people wonder if there is something unusual about the Earth beneath the triangle. The ocean floor here is not simple or flat. It has deep trenches, underwater mountains, and long cracks in the Earth's crust. Some scientists think these features may affect magnetic fields. Magnetic fields are invisible, but they guide compasses, birds, and even ocean currents. If the Earth's crust is shaped in a strange way, it could bend magnetic lines slightly. Not enough to harm anything, but enough to confuse anyone trying to navigate with simple tools. Still, this explanation doesn't fully cover the stories told by pilots who fly thousands of feet above the water. One pilot described a moment where his compass spun slowly, like it was being pushed around by gentle hands. His plane was new, his instruments were tested, and the weather was calm. But for a few minutes, every direction looked wrong. He said it was like the sky itself was shifting. Later, when he checked his flight log, he found that his plane had moved off course by several miles, even though he never changed direction. Another pilot, flying a small private plane, said his compass behaved normally until he entered a certain part of the triangle. There were no clouds, no storms, and the sea below him looked almost too still. Suddenly, the compass needle stopped moving completely. It froze in place, stuck like a piece of metal glued to the glass. When he tried to correct his direction using the sun, he realized he was turning too much to the left. He ended up flying in a curve, without meaning to, until the compass suddenly flicked back to life. The needle jumped 3 times and then settled into the correct position as if nothing had happened. Some people believe that these compass problems are not just normal magnetic variation. They think the Bermuda Triangle sits in a rare place where true north and magnetic north line up perfectly. This event is called a magnetic lineup, and it happens only in a few places on Earth. When it happens, compasses become more sensitive. A tiny change in movement or force may make the needle react quickly, almost nervously. If a pilot or sailor does not know this is happening, they may follow the wrong direction without even realizing it. But then there are the stories that are even harder to explain. Stories where compasses didn't just point to the wrong direction, they pointed toward each other. One ship reported that 2 compasses placed at opposite sides of the room pointed toward each other, like they were being pulled by an invisible thread. When the ship moved forward, both compasses turned again, still pointing inward. The crew had never seen anything like it. They said it felt like the ship was passing through a magnetic bubble that didn't match the map or the sky. Some theories say the Earth's magnetic field might ripple or pulse in this region, because of shifting rocks deep beneath the ocean. Others believe the triangle may sit above underwater volcanic activity that briefly changes the magnetic energy in the area. If this is true, the magnetic field here might not be steady. It might move slightly, like a soft wave of energy that passes by every now and then. But there is something comforting in all of this. Even though the stories sound strange, none of them involve anything harmful, just confusing. The compass doesn't break. It doesn't explode. It simply becomes unsure for a moment, like a person who forgets which way they were going. And then it corrects itself again. And that tiny window, those few minutes where direction becomes unclear, is enough for mystery to grow. A pilot flying at night might not notice how far the wind pushed him. A ship traveling calmly might turn a few degrees off course without realizing it. Hours later, they might be far from where they expected to be. And in the wide open ocean, being far off course can be dangerous, even with perfect weather. The more you think about these stories, the more they pull you in. Not because they are scary, but because they are so subtle, so quiet. The world doesn't shake. The waves don't roar. Machines simply act strange. A small, hidden change that can send a ship or plane into confusion without making a sound. And when you lie back and picture the calm ocean, the soft sound of waves, and a simple compass needle trembling slightly, you begin to feel the quiet mystery of this place. A mystery that seems gentle but powerful. A mystery that reminds us the world still holds secrets we don't fully understand. There is a theory about the Bermuda Triangle that sounds almost unreal at first, like something from a science show rather than the deep ocean. But the more you learn about it, the more you realize how simple and logical it actually is. It is the idea that something hidden under the ocean floor, something we cannot see, might be responsible for some of the strange disappearances. Methane hydrate. Methane hydrate is a frozen gas trapped under the seabed, locked inside the cold, high-pressure world at the bottom of the ocean. Imagine bright, icy crystals that look like snow but burn like fuel. These crystals rest quietly inside the deep mud and rock layers, but under the right conditions, they can suddenly release gas. And when that happens, something very unusual occurs in the water above them. For many years, scientists believed methane hydrate didn't play much of a role in everyday life. But then they started finding huge fields of it in oceans around the world, especially near places where the seabed changes shape or temperature quickly. The Bermuda Triangle sits above one of these areas, and because of this, scientists began to wonder, what happens when a large pocket of methane gas rises from the ocean floor all at once? The answer is surprising. When methane gas escapes from the seabed, it rises like a giant bubble. Not a small bubble, like something you would see in a glass of soda, but a bubble so huge that it could be wider than a house. And as it rises, it mixes with the water around it. When enough gas mixes with water, that water becomes much less dense. It becomes lighter, weaker, almost like the ocean is losing its strength. Now picture a ship traveling over water that suddenly becomes thinner than normal. Ships float because the water beneath them pushes upward with strong force. But if that force weakens, even for a few moments, the ship can begin to sink fast. And because the gas rises so quickly, the ship might go down before anyone realizes what is happening. The people on board might see the water bubbling around them, but they would not have time to send a message or react. Scientists have tested this idea in large tanks and computer models. In some of the tests, when methane gas was added under a ship, the ship dropped straight down into the water almost instantly. It didn't tilt. It didn't slide. It simply sank like the water opened beneath it. And when the ship sank below the gas cloud, the normal water returned, hiding everything once the gas floated away into the air. If something like this happened in the open ocean, it would leave almost no trace. No floating debris, no broken pieces, nothing. just silence. Even more interesting is what could happen to airplanes. If a plane flies over a large methane release, the gas can rise into the air and mix with oxygen. If the concentration becomes thick enough, a plane engine passing through it might lose power for a few seconds. Or in rare cases, the gas could even ignite. Pilots in the Triangle have reported seeing hazy air on perfectly clear days. Some have said they smelled something strange, almost like fuel, even though nothing seemed wrong with the plane. These are small details, but when you combine them with what methane gas can do, they become more meaningful. Imagine this: a plane flying smoothly over calm water. The passengers are relaxed, maybe even sleeping. The pilot looks at the instruments, everything normal. Then the plane enters a rising bubble of gas. For a few seconds, the engines cough, struggle, or lose power. The plane dips downward. The pilot tries to regain control, but without clear visibility, and with instruments flickering, even a small mistake could become a big one. If the plane falls low enough, it might hit the water before the pilot has time to understand what happened. And because methane gas does not leave a clear trace in the air, investigators later might find no sign of an explosion or fire. This theory does not try to replace every story about the Bermuda Triangle. It does not claim every ship or plane vanished because of methane gas, but it offers a powerful explanation for how some disappearances might occur without storms, without strange signals, and without any radio calls. It explains the silence, the suddenness, the lack of debris. One of the reasons this theory attracts so much interest is because the triangle sits near a place where the ocean floor rises and falls sharply. These sudden changes in depth can create pockets where methane hydrate forms in large amounts. And when the temperature of the water changes, or when deep currents shift, these pockets can become unstable. That is when the gas escapes. Not slowly, not gently, but all at once. Some underwater photographs show large round holes in the seabed, holes that look like something exploded from underneath. These holes have been found in other oceans too, not just the Triangle. In places like the Barents Sea near Norway, scientists discovered huge craters formed by gas bursts. Ships do not travel there as often, so the effect is not as well known. But when researchers looked at those craters, they realized the explosions were powerful enough to shake the water above them. Now imagine craters like these forming under a busy travel route like the Bermuda Triangle. A ship passing over that spot at the wrong time might be caught without warning. Even a slight disturbance below the surface could change everything on top. The calmest part of this theory is that it makes the triangle feel less supernatural and more like a place where natural forces behave in strange, powerful ways. There is something peaceful in knowing that the world is full of hidden processes, quiet, sleeping forces that wake up only once in a while. These forces don't chase ships or hunt planes. They simply happen because the Earth is alive, always moving, always changing. If you close your eyes, you can imagine the deep ocean floor beneath the triangle, dark, cold, and still. For years, the methane hydrates rest quietly under the surface, frozen in layers of ice-like crystals. Then, slowly, pressure builds. A crack forms. A release begins. A giant bubble rises, twisting the water around it. The ocean surface shimmers, but there is no sound, no warning. Just a silent breath from the earth itself. And above that breath, a ship, a plane, a traveler passing through a place they cannot see below them, not knowing that something quiet and natural might be rising from the deep. Whether or not methane hydrate explains every mystery, it adds a beautiful and haunting layer to the story of the Bermuda Triangle. a reminder that the ocean is full of secrets. And tonight, as you relax and listen, you can feel the soft mystery of it all, the gentle idea that the world still has hidden things waiting to be understood. When people talk about the Bermuda Triangle, they usually focus on the surface. They imagine the waves, the sky, the ships, and the planes. But the real mystery may not be above the water at all. It may be deep below, in a world that is darker, colder, and far stranger than anything we see on the surface. The deep ocean here is not like other parts of the sea. It hides places no human has ever visited, landscapes no map has ever fully shown, and trenches so deep they feel more like another planet than a part of Earth. If you could look under the triangle the way you look at a map on a table, you would see an ocean floor full of twists and drops. Some parts rise like cliffs, and some fall suddenly like huge pits. There are underwater mountains with sharp sides, long cracks where the earth is pulling apart, and valleys that run for miles. This uneven shape creates a quiet but powerful mystery. When ships sink in normal waters, their wrecks often stay in shallow areas where people can find them. But in the triangle, a ship can slide into a trench so deep that sunlight has never touched it. One of the most surprising things about the deep ocean under the triangle is how little of it we have explored. Even today, with all the technology we have, more humans have visited space than the deep sea. Remote cameras can only go so far. Submarines can only handle so much pressure. And because the triangle covers such a big area, only small parts of it have been carefully mapped. Much of it is still blank, like a page left unfinished. This alone helps explain why so many wrecks have never been found. Imagine a trench hidden beneath the surface, so deep that a ship falling into it would disappear in seconds. The water pressure down there is strong enough to crush metal. The temperature is near freezing. The darkness is complete. If a ship sank into that kind of depth, it would not float up again. It would not leave pieces behind. Everything would fall into a place where humans simply cannot go. This is one reason many ships lost in the triangle have no trace, no broken wood, no metal parts, nothing to tell the story of what happened. Scientists who study the seafloor describe it like a puzzle that is always changing. The Earth's crust under the ocean is not still. It moves slowly, opening faults and closing them, creating small earthquakes that most people never feel. In the Bermuda Triangle, there are areas where these faults are larger and more active than usual. When the ocean floor shakes or shifts even slightly, anything resting on it can move. A wreck may slide deeper over time. Pieces that were once close to the surface may fall into deeper pits. This means even if someone finds a shipwreck once, it might not be in the same place years later. Some underwater pictures taken near the triangle show long cracks stretching across the seafloor. These cracks can be wide enough for a car to fit in and deep enough to hide an entire ship. Inside them, the water is still and heavy. It is easy to imagine how a ship that breaks apart might slip into one of these cracks, piece by piece, until nothing is left on top. Another mystery of the deep ocean here is how sound travels. In some places, sound moves easily underwater, and submarines can listen for miles. But the shape of the triangle's seafloor makes sound behave strangely. Sharp ridges and deep holes bend sound waves, trapping them or scattering them in different directions. This makes it harder for search teams to use underwater sonar to find wrecks. Sonar signals bounce around, creating confusing echoes that hide the true location of objects. It's almost like the deep sea is protecting its secrets, holding them close. Some researchers believe that underwater landslides play a role in the disappearances. Just like mountains on land can have landslides, underwater slopes can suddenly collapse. When they do, they send huge clouds of sand, mud, and rock into the water. These clouds can bury anything resting on the ocean floor, ships, parts of ships, or pieces of airplanes. Once buried under thick layers of mud, these objects will not show up on sonar, and search teams might pass over them without seeing a single clue. One of the most interesting ideas is that the Bermuda Triangle may contain underwater caves or hollow spaces inside the seafloor. These cavities are created when rock layers dissolve or crack over thousands of years. If a wreck falls on top of one of these cavities, it might break through and sink even deeper into the earth, becoming hidden in a place that is almost impossible to reach. Scientists studying similar ocean areas have discovered caves large enough to hide entire buildings. If the triangle has structures like these, it could easily hide wreckage forever. The underwater terrain also affects how currents move. In normal ocean areas, currents flow smoothly. But in the triangle, the strange shape of the seafloor creates pockets where currents swirl in circles or drop downward suddenly. Some of these swirling currents act like underwater whirlpools. They do not pull ships down, but they can move wrecks from where they originally sank. A plane that crashed in one place might be carried miles away before settling. A ship that broke apart near the surface might have pieces spread across a wide area and then pulled into a deep trench. Even more fascinating is how temperature changes near the seafloor. In some areas, hot water from deep in the earth rises through cracks. This heated water mixes with cold water above, creating strange movements that can shift sand and small objects. Over time, this slow movement can cover wrecks in layers of sediment. A ship that was visible a year ago might be completely gone the next. All of these details add to the mystery, not because they are magical, but because they show how powerful and unpredictable the deep ocean truly is. The Bermuda Triangle is not just a place where things disappear on the surface. It is a place where the ocean floor itself helps hide anything that falls into it. If you try to picture this deep world, it feels quiet and lonely. Imagine standing on the edge of a black canyon, miles below the surface. The water around you is still. Strange creatures with glowing bodies move slowly in the darkness. Everything is silent, except for distant, low sounds created by the movement of the earth itself. Now imagine a piece of a ship sinking into that silence, falling so deep that no light can follow it. Once it reaches the bottom, it settles into soft sand, untouched by waves or wind. And over years, the ocean slowly buries it, little by little, until it becomes part of the seafloor. That is the kind of place the Bermuda Triangle sits above, an underwater world that remains mostly unexplored, mostly unseen, and full of places where anything could vanish without a trace. And in that unseen world, the mystery grows not because something strange is happening, but because the deep ocean is still one of the least understood places on our planet, a place where the earth keeps its secrets quietly, far below the surface. When people talk about the Bermuda Triangle, they often jump straight to spooky stories, strange forces, and mysteries that feel larger than life. But sometimes, the truth hides in simple human actions, quiet mistakes, and the busy rhythm of the sea and sky. And when you look closely, you begin to see how the triangle is not just a strange place, but also a very active one. A place where hundreds of ships and aircraft move every single day. A place where even a tiny error can become a big problem. A place where the ocean asks everyone to pay attention, because if they don't, it reacts quickly. To understand the mystery more deeply, imagine standing above a giant map, watching slow lines of ships moving across the water. Some are cargo ships carrying huge loads. Some are cruise ships bright with lights. Others are small boats used for fishing or transport. They all follow routes that often pass through the Bermuda Triangle because it connects important ports like Florida, the Bahamas, and Caribbean islands. Now picture the sky above. Planes fly through this region constantly, following paths from North America towards Central America or from islands back to the mainland. The air and sea traffic here is much heavier than many people realize. When a place is busy, accidents can happen more easily. Most of the time, these accidents are normal and explained, but in the triangle, they sometimes feel more mysterious because of the stories that already surround it. Once people expect something strange, even a normal mistake begins to feel magical or frightening. One of the biggest causes of trouble in this area is simple human error. A ship captain might think he is a few miles away from where he actually is. A pilot might misread a compass or misunderstand a radio message. Someone might trust a weather forecast without realizing that conditions can change too fast here. Sometimes people rely too much on old tools or forget to double-check their instruments. These mistakes may seem small, but over open ocean, even one mistake can be serious. Think of a ship at night, moving slowly through dark waves. The captain is watching the horizon, but the ocean looks the same in every direction. Lights from land are far away. If someone turns the wheel a little too much or reads the map wrong, the ship can end up far off its planned route. If a storm then appears without warning, everything becomes harder. People panic. Communication becomes confusing. And by the time anyone realizes what is happening, the situation may already be dangerous. For pilots, the challenge is even greater. In the sky, there are no landmarks, no street signs, no edges to follow. Everything depends on instruments, compass, altimeter, radio, and navigation systems. If even one of these starts giving strange numbers and the weather outside is cloudy, the pilot can become unsure of their position. This has happened many times throughout aviation history, not just in the Bermuda Triangle. But because the triangle is already famous, these events stand out more. There is also something interesting about how people react in stressful situations. When someone feels pressure, their thinking becomes less clear. A pilot might doubt their own instruments. A ship crew might mishear an order. Calm plans can turn into rushed decisions. The ocean is not a place that forgives mistakes quickly. It moves constantly, and once something goes wrong, time feels shorter and shorter. Another thing many people do not realize is that ships travel along very old sea routes, routes that were made before modern technology. These paths are still used because they are the shortest or safest in terms of depth. But a lot of navigation used to rely on paper charts, lighthouses, and simple compasses. Even today, some smaller ships still use older tools. If any of these fail or are used incorrectly, it can lead to trouble. The same idea applies to aircraft. Modern planes have advanced systems, but older ones, especially training aircraft, private planes, and small transport planes, may still rely on simpler equipment. Over the Bermuda Triangle, where storms grow quickly and magnetic behavior can be unusual, basic tools can make flying even harder. Traffic density is another hidden part of the story. The more people travel through a place, the more likely accidents become, not because the place is dangerous, but because there are simply more chances for something to go wrong. It's like a busy highway. Even if the road is perfectly safe, accidents still happen because so many cars are passing through. The Bermuda Triangle is a busy highway of the sea and sky, And here is something many people never think about: communication weaknesses. In earlier times, radios were not very strong. Signals faded. Messages were unclear. Ships could lose contact easily. Pilots sometimes heard only parts of instructions or weather warnings. When communication breaks, confusion grows. People begin guessing instead of knowing. And sometimes those guesses lead them into danger. Some sailors and pilots were also undertrained or inexperienced. In a region known for sudden weather changes, experience matters. Someone who has only seen calm seas may not know how to handle strong winds or fast-moving clouds. Someone new to navigation may not understand how quickly the ocean can change their position. Many lost ships and planes were operated by people who were still learning. But even with all these things, the triangle might still have remained an ordinary place if it were not for the mystery attached to it. Once stories began spreading, every new accident added more fuel. People started linking events that were not truly connected. A normal ship sinking felt like part of a larger pattern simply because it happened within the triangle's imaginary borders. A plane going down due to engine failure suddenly sounded magical because of the region's reputation. This is one of the most curious things about the Bermuda Triangle. Sometimes the mystery grows not from the ocean itself, but from how people think about it. When something ordinary happens in a place known for mystery, our minds automatically search for the unusual. Even if the cause is human error, it feels like something more. Still, the stories continue because they make us wonder. They remind us how powerful nature is, how small we sometimes are, and how easily small mistakes can become big moments. They teach us that even in our modern world, with all our tools and technology, the sea and sky still require respect. As you imagine the quiet ocean tonight, think of the many people who traveled through this region, some tired, some hopeful, some confident, and some nervous. Think of the choices they made, the tools they used, the weather they faced, and how sometimes one tiny moment can change everything. Not because of anything supernatural, but simply because the world is vast and humans are still learning to understand it. And maybe that is the calm secret behind many stories of the Bermuda Triangle. Not monsters or magical forces, but the simple truth that even ordinary mistakes can feel extraordinary when they happen in a place wrapped in silence, mystery, and endless deep blue. There are stories from the Bermuda Triangle that feel different from the usual tales of storms, lost ships, or missing planes. These stories come from pilots who say they flew into strange clouds that did not act like normal clouds. They talk about something they call electronic fog, a thick, hazy cover that seems to follow their aircraft and affect their instruments. Some even speak of time moving in unusual ways, as if the minutes changed speed or the outside world shifted without warning. These reports are rare, but they are so unusual that they have become an important part of the Triangle's mystery. To understand these stories, imagine flying high above the ocean on a quiet day. The sea below looks smooth, the sky wide and calm. The plane hums softly. The compass is steady. Everything feels normal. Then far ahead you see something odd, a cloud that looks different from the others. Maybe it has sharp edges. Maybe it moves in a slow, curling way that does not match the wind. At first, you think your eyes are simply tired. But as you fly closer, the cloud seems almost too perfect, like a tunnel or a shape that should not appear naturally. Many pilots describe entering such a cloud because they had no time or space to avoid it. Inside, the world becomes strange. The cloud is not just fog, it feels electric, almost alive. Some pilots say they felt a tingling in their hands or noticed a soft buzzing sound. Others say their plane began to behave in unexpected ways. The radio started to fade. The compass spun slowly. Lights flickered, and the horizon outside vanished completely. One of the most famous pilots to report this experience was Bruce Jernon. He described flying into a cloud formation that looked like a giant tunnel. Inside, he said there was a gray, misty fog that wrapped around his plane like a blanket. He also claimed his instruments behaved strangely. Numbers did not match what he expected. Time seemed to move faster or slower. When he came out of the cloud, he found himself much closer to Florida than he should have been. He believed the fog had somehow changed the way time passed for him. Many people question his story, but it captured attention because of how calm and detailed his account was. Whether everything happened exactly as he described is something no one can prove. But his story opened a door to the idea that something unusual might happen in this part of the sky. Other pilots have reported smaller but similar events. Some say they saw clouds that moved toward their planes in a straight line, as if pulled by an invisible force. Some say their radios went silent even though the weather was clear. Others speak of watching their instruments go blank for a few seconds, then suddenly turn back on. In the air, even a few seconds of lost information can feel like a lifetime. When a plane depends on electronics, a moment of confusion can change everything. Scientists who hear these stories usually try to connect them with natural causes. They say that sudden fog banks can form when warm and cold air meet quickly. The fog becomes thick enough to affect visibility. They also say that strong electrical activity in clouds can interfere with radios and compasses. Lightning does not have to strike a plane directly. Even the energy inside a storm can disturb electronic signals. But then, there are parts of the stories that science struggles to explain completely. For example, pilots say their planes seem to move faster inside the fog, even though their engines did not change. Some say they reached their destination too early, almost as if something had bent the path they were traveling. These time jump reports are rare, but because they are so unusual, they make people wonder. A few pilots even describe feeling a deep sense of calm while inside the fog, as if the world outside had paused. They say the air felt heavy, the sound inside the plane became softer, and the sense of time became strange. Moments felt longer, or shorter, or almost suspended. And when they came out, their watches or logs did not match the expected time. It is important to remember that flying can be confusing when visibility is low. Thick fog removes all outside reference points. Without the horizon or stars, your sense of motion can become confused. Pilots are trained to trust instruments, not feelings. But when instruments start acting strangely, the brain begins to fill the silence with fear or imagination. That does not make these pilot stories false. It simply shows how the mind and the environment can influence each other in ways that feel unreal. Some pilots say that the electronic fog follows them even after they leave the main cloud. They describe a thin, glowing mist that clings to the wings or windows for a few minutes. They say this mist fades slowly, like smoke dissolving into the air. Many scientists believe this could be normal moisture or ice crystals catching light in a strange way. But because it appears during unusual events, it adds another layer to the mystery. Instrument shutdowns are also part of these stories. The compass might stop turning, the altimeter might freeze, the radio might become silent. These moments can happen in real storms or due to electrical interference, so they are not impossible. But the triangle seems to bring these moments together in ways that feel almost too perfect, as if all errors happen at once. Some people wonder whether the Earth's magnetic field in this region could play a role. Others think that unusual weather patterns might create pockets of electricity in the air. A few people even suggest that unknown energies deep in the ocean could affect the sky above. None of these ideas are proven, but they show how deeply people want to understand what pilots have seen. What makes these stories truly powerful is the tone that pilots use when they talk about them. Many describe the experience calmly, almost softly, as if they are remembering a dream rather than a danger. They talk about the quiet inside the fog, the way sound seemed softer, the way the world outside felt far away. They talk about how time seemed to melt, how minutes felt different, how their minds felt both awake and distant at the same time. Listening to these stories feels like listening to someone describe a strange moment between sleep and waking, a moment when the world feels tilted, quiet, and slowed down, a moment when you are part of something unusual but peaceful at the same time. In the end, no one knows exactly what electronic fog is, or if time really changes inside these clouds. Some believe the stories completely. Others think they are natural events mixed with human confusion. But whatever the truth is, these reports add a soft, mysterious layer to the Bermuda Triangle. They remind us that even in a world full of science, there are still places that make us wonder. Places where the sky feels deeper, the air feels heavier, and the quiet seems to stretch a little longer than usual. And maybe that is why these stories continue. Not because they are frightening, but because they touch something human inside us. The part that notices strange moments, the part that listens to silence, the part that wonders what lies just beyond the edge of what we can explain. There is a part of the Bermuda Triangle mystery that people often whisper about, especially when they cannot explain the strange events by storms, fog, or human mistakes. It is the idea that something not from Earth might be involved. Even though it sounds wild, this idea has become one of the most popular explanations. Many people believe that the triangle might be connected to extraterrestrial activity, not because they want to scare anyone, but because some events feel so unusual that they make people wonder if something else is watching, listening, or even interacting with this small corner of the world. When people talk about this idea, they usually start by pointing out how many disappearances happen without any distress calls. Ships that should have had time to send a message simply go silent. Planes that had working radios suddenly stop answering. And sometimes, the weather is calm when it happens. Because of this, some people think the triangle might be a kind of hot spot, a place where something unknown comes and goes. One reason many people bring aliens into the conversation is that some reports talk about strange lights. Pilots have said they saw bright flashes or glowing shapes moving in the sky. These lights did not behave like normal aircraft. They moved too fast or changed direction too sharply. Some sailors even said they saw lights under the water, glowing deep below the waves as if something large and bright was moving in the dark. These stories, even when told quietly, make people ask questions. People also point to the fact that the area is large, open, and mostly empty. The ocean is deep, the sky is wide, and there are long stretches where no one is around. If something unusual were to hide somewhere on Earth, this area would be a quiet place to choose. Some believers think that the triangle might be a place where extraterrestrial visitors observe human activity from a distance. They imagine spacecraft hidden deep underwater or disguised as strange lights in the sky. There is also a popular idea that something like a portal could exist here. People imagine that advanced beings might have a way to move through space using invisible doorways. If the triangle sits on one of these points, they think that passing through it might remove ships or planes without warning. This idea sounds very mysterious, and there is no proof of it, but people like to explore these possibilities because they offer explanations that feel big enough for the mystery. A few authors in the past even suggested that missing ships and planes were taken on purpose. They believed that extraterrestrials might be studying human technology or behavior. This idea grew popular in books and documentaries, especially because the disappearances often happened in patterns that looked unusual. A ship would vanish in perfect weather. A plane would disappear while talking to control towers. Sometimes wreckage was never found. These gaps in evidence made the extraterrestrial idea grow stronger for some people. Some stories come from people who say they saw things with their own eyes. There are old accounts of sailors describing large objects rising from the water silently, without waves or noise. There are fishermen who claim they saw a bright circle under their boat, moving slowly like an underwater spotlight. There are pilots who say they saw a glowing object follow their plane for miles before suddenly flying straight into the clouds and disappearing completely. Whether these events were real, misunderstood, or imagined is something no one can confirm, but they shape the mystery in a way that feels almost dreamlike. One of the most famous ideas is that the triangle could be home to an underwater base, something built by an advanced civilization from far away. This theory grew after strange pyramid-like shapes were detected on sonar deep beneath the ocean near the Bahamas. Some people believe these shapes were not natural. Scientists say they could be rock formations or old geological structures, but their shape made people wonder. If something intelligent built anything under the ocean thousands of feet deep, the triangle would be the perfect hiding place. People who believe in extraterrestrial involvement often say that the triangle's strange energy patterns might attract visitors. Electromagnetic changes, odd compass readings, and silent radio zones could be signs of technology far beyond what humans understand. They imagine that these visitors might use the triangle as a charging point, a navigation point, or even a research area. In this idea, disappearances might be side effects of powerful forces humans cannot see. There are also people who think the strange fog that pilots describe could be connected. They imagine this fog as some kind of shield, created by advanced technology. Maybe it affects instruments because it carries energy humans do not understand. Maybe it changes time slightly because it bends space in ways humans cannot measure. Again, these ideas are not proven, but they show how far people go to explain things that feel impossible. Some pilots who experienced something unusual in the triangle said they felt watched, not in a frightening way, but in a quiet, observing way. They said they felt the sky around them was different, as if they were not alone. Feelings are not evidence, but they leave a strong impression on the imagination. What keeps these ideas alive is not proof, but the lack of answers. When a large ship disappears without wreckage, people look for bigger explanations. When a plane vanishes without sending a message, people want something powerful enough to silence it. The ocean in this region is so deep and so unexplored that even scientists admit they do not know everything hiding below. And whenever humans face a mystery too large to explain, they naturally begin to imagine possibilities beyond the world they know. Even though most scientists do not support the extraterrestrial idea, they understand why people talk about it. The triangle brings together too many strange stories, too many odd lights, strange clouds, missing wrecks, and confusing signals. Even if there is a scientific reason behind everything, the mystery leaves space for the mind to wander. And sometimes, wandering minds find comfort in stories that feel bigger than life. People also enjoy the idea because it makes the world feel more magical. The thought that Earth might be quietly visited or observed brings a sense of wonder. It makes the night sky feel deeper, the ocean feel older, and the world feel full of hidden secrets. Whether the stories are real or not, they remind people that the universe is huge, and humans have only explored a tiny part of it. In the calm of the night, when the mind is soft and relaxed, it is easy to imagine a quiet spacecraft moving silently above the clouds. It is easy to picture a glowing light rising from the deep, or a strange fog filled with unexplained energy. These images do not need to be scary. In fact, many people find them peaceful, like distant mysteries that patiently wait in the dark. And that is why the extraterrestrial theories stay alive. Not because they are proven, but because they capture something human, the wish to understand the unknown, the curiosity that rises when something cannot be explained, and the gentle idea that maybe, somewhere out there, someone is watching with interest, not harm. There is another idea people often bring up when they talk about the Bermuda Triangle, and it does not come from the sky or from outer space. Instead, it comes from deep beneath the ocean. It is the idea that an ancient, advanced civilization once existed in this part of the world, long before our history books begin. Many people call this lost place Atlantis, a city or continent that sank into the sea thousands of years ago. Even though no one can prove it existed, the idea is so powerful and mysterious that it continues to shape how people think about the triangle. When people hear the word Atlantis, they imagine a bright, glowing city with tall towers, strange machines, and knowledge far beyond what we have today. Some imagine a culture that understood energy in ways we cannot even describe. Others think they used crystals or magnetic fields or some kind of advanced power that has long been forgotten. And then there are people who believe that some ruins of this civilization still lie beneath the Bermuda Triangle, hidden under the water, sending out strange energy or signals that affect ships and planes even today. This idea became popular because of a mixture of old stories and modern discoveries. Thousands of years ago, the philosopher Plato wrote about a grand island that sank into the ocean after a great disaster. He said it was powerful and advanced, and it disappeared in a single day and night. He claimed this story came from even older memories passed down through generations. Whether Atlantis was real or simply a story, no one knows. But the description of an advanced island swallowed by the sea captured imaginations for centuries. As time passed, explorers, divers, and scientists began searching for places that might match Plato's description. The Bermuda Triangle became a favorite location for these ideas because it is large, mysterious, and full of strange events. Some people believe it sits on an old fault line that once held a great island. Others think the seafloor here hides ancient structures that collapsed long ago. The thought that something lost might lie beneath the waves makes this part of the ocean feel even more mysterious. One of the biggest reasons people connect Atlantis to the Triangle is the strange stories about energy. Some ships and planes report strange compass readings. Some sailors say their radios act strangely. Some pilots say they feel electrical charges in the air. People who believe in the Atlantis idea think these events could be caused by ancient technology buried under the ocean. They imagine old machines, still carrying a faint amount of power, sending energy upward without anyone knowing. There are also stories about underwater formations found by sonar. Some divers claim they saw large stone blocks arranged in straight lines. Others say they saw pyramid-shaped structures deep below the surface. One of the most famous reports is the Bimini Road, a formation of large stones found underwater near the Bahamas. Some people think it is the remains of an old road or wall from an ancient city. Scientists say it could be natural rock that broke into even shapes over time. But even with scientific explanations, the shape of these stones sparks curiosity. People who believe the Atlantis idea say that if an advanced civilization really existed here, it could explain why the triangle behaves differently from other places. They think that old energy fields could still be active. Maybe these fields affect instruments in the air. Maybe they cause strange fog or sudden compass changes. Maybe they create the feeling of time moving differently. These ideas are only guesses, but people explore them because they feel big enough to match the size of the mystery. Some theories go deeper, imagining that Atlantis had machines that used natural forces of the Earth. They might have used the magnetism of the planet, or the energy of the ocean, or something completely unknown. And if these machines were still buried under the sea, they might create unusual effects without anyone realizing it. Ships passing over the area might move into a zone of strange energy. Planes flying above might enter a field that causes their instruments to stop working. Even if the machines are broken, the leftover energy might be enough to cause confusion. There are also stories from divers who explored deep underwater areas in the region. Some claimed they felt strong vibrations even when there were no boats nearby. Some said their lights blinked or turned off for no reason. A few said they felt a strange heaviness, as if the water around them held something old and powerful. These stories are not proven, and they may have simple explanations like underwater currents or pressure changes. But they add to the feeling that the ocean here hides more than just sand and rock. What makes the Atlantis idea so interesting is the peaceful feeling behind it. Unlike theories that involve danger or harm, Atlantis is often imagined as a wise and advanced culture. People think about knowledge lost through time. They imagine calm streets, glowing energy, gentle technology that worked with nature instead of against it. It is not the idea of something scary, but something ancient and forgotten, something that might still whisper from beneath the waves, even if no one can understand it. The ocean in this region is incredibly deep. There are trenches thousands of feet down, cracks where the seafloor opens, and areas humans have never fully explored. If something ancient is hiding there, humans would have a difficult time finding it. The water pressure alone makes exploration challenging. Light cannot reach those depths, and machines often struggle in such conditions. Because of this, people feel free to imagine possibilities. The mystery grows because the ocean keeps its secrets. The Atlantis idea also stays alive because it connects to human nature. People want to believe that older civilizations might have been wiser or more advanced than we think. They want to imagine that knowledge has been lost and might one day be found again. The triangle becomes a symbol of that hidden knowledge, not just a place where things vanish, but a place where something old might still exist quietly, untouched, waiting. Even though scientists say there is no proof of an ancient advanced city under the triangle, they also admit that the ocean is full of things we have not discovered. And that small space between what we know and what we do not know is where imagination grows strongest. The triangle, with all its silence and secrets, becomes the perfect place for these ideas. When you think about it in a calm and quiet moment, the idea of Atlantis does not feel frightening at all. It feels peaceful, a lost world resting beneath the waves, a place where time stopped long ago, a silent, forgotten memory held inside the deep ocean. And the thought that something ancient might still be down there adds a soft layer of wonder to the mystery. It makes the ocean feel deeper, older, and filled with stories we have not yet heard. Whether Atlantis was real or only a legend, it continues to shape the way people talk about the Bermuda Triangle. It gives the mystery a quiet beauty, like a reminder that the world holds secrets beneath its surface. And those secrets, whatever they may be, help keep the triangle alive in our imagination, whispering softly beneath the water. When people hear about the Bermuda Triangle, many imagine secret powers or unknown forces hiding under the waves. But what do the real experts say? What have the largest and most trusted organizations in the world found after years of study? Tonight, we'll gently walk through what the U.S. Navy, the Coast Guard, NOAA, and many researchers have actually concluded. And as you listen, you may notice a quiet sense of curiosity rising inside you, because the truth is far calmer and more surprising than most stories you hear online. Let's start with the U.S. Navy. People often believe the Navy hides secrets about the Triangle, but the official statements tell a very different story. According to them, the area is not considered any more dangerous than any other busy part of the ocean. The Navy says there is no special label for the region on their maps, no warning notes, and no suggestion that ships or planes need extra protection when passing through. Their reports say that accidents happen in many parts of the world, and the Bermuda Triangle is simply one of the most traveled places on Earth. More ships mean more events, and more events mean more stories. This simple idea is something many people forget. Just hearing that may make you think more calmly about the mystery, as if a light is slowly turning on in a dim room. The U.S. Coast Guard shares a similar view. They have responded to countless calls in the area, so they know the waters well. Their official conclusion is that the disappearances linked to the triangle are not unusual at all. They say storms come quickly in that region, currents are strong, and human mistakes are common. The Coast Guard has documented cases where boats were not maintained, where radio equipment failed, or where weather warnings were ignored. Many of the so-called mysterious cases had simple explanations, but those explanations were not as exciting to write in news stories. The Coast Guard even said that natural dangers are enough to explain almost every major report connected to the triangle. Hearing this may feel a bit surprising, especially if you've always imagined the area as something strange or supernatural. But sometimes the calm truth is more interesting than the rumor. It shows us how easily stories grow when people want excitement or when small details go missing. NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, also plays a big role in understanding the triangle. Their scientists study the ocean, storms, magnetic fields, and sea currents, and according to them, nothing in the region breaks the laws of nature. They explain that the Gulf Stream, a fast and powerful current, moves through the triangle. This current can pull objects far away in a short time, making wreckage difficult to find. Powerful storms and hurricanes also pass through the area often. NOAA adds that ocean waves can rise very high without warning. With so many natural forces happening in the same place, accidents can become harder to study. There is also something NOAA explains about methane gas. Some researchers once believed that methane bubbles rising from the ocean floor could cause ships to sink quickly. While this idea sounds dramatic, NOAA found no strong proof that methane gas releases in the Bermuda Triangle are powerful or frequent enough to cause such events. It's a theory that sounds interesting but doesn't match real data. Many experts in universities have also studied the triangle. They look at flight paths, ship logs, weather reports, and old newspaper stories. And something surprising happens when they do this. Many of the famous disappearances are not as mysterious as people once believed. Flights that were said to vanish without a trace were actually found to have clear causes, such as running out of fuel or flying into storms. Ships that never sent a call for help did send calls, but those details were lost in retellings. Some stories were simply exaggerated over time, while others were misunderstood by writers. One famous example is Flight 19, a group of 5 Navy training aircraft that disappeared in 1945. People often claim they were swallowed by something unnatural, but official reports show the pilots got confused, believed they were flying in the wrong direction, and ran out of fuel. The ocean was rough that night, and the planes likely crashed into the water. Even the rescue plane that was sent out disappeared because it exploded after a fuel leak. None of this was caused by strange forces. It was a tragic accident, not an unexplained mystery. Even so, people continue to feel something special about the Bermuda Triangle. There is something about the ocean that touches the imagination. When a ship goes missing, it is natural for the mind to search for meaning. When a story has missing pieces, the brain fills the gaps. And sometimes, the simplest truth is harder to accept than a dramatic one. Some researchers say that the triangle story became popular because it offers a sense of wonder. It makes ordinary events feel connected to something bigger. Others believe that the early writers who shaped the mystery enjoyed adding dramatic details. They weren't always focused on accuracy. They wanted to create a feeling, and that feeling stayed with people for many years. Another interesting fact is that many places around the world have similar stories, but they never became as famous. There are areas with more shipwrecks and more plane accidents than the Bermuda Triangle, but none of those regions have a name that captures the imagination. None have books and movies built around them. The legend grew because people liked the idea, not because the data supported it. So after all these studies, what do experts really conclude? They say the Bermuda Triangle is not a supernatural place. It is a busy stretch of water with strong currents, fast-changing weather, and heavy traffic. It is a region where small mistakes can become big accidents. It is a place where nature is powerful and sometimes unforgiving. And it is a place where stories grew until they seemed like something more. And yet, even with all this knowledge, the mystery still feels gentle and interesting in its own way. Not because of fear, but because of curiosity. There is something comforting about knowing both sides of the story, the exciting tales that spark the imagination, and the calm explanations that bring everything back to earth. When you hear both, your mind settles somewhere in the middle, where wonder and understanding quietly meet. In the end, the official investigations remind us of something simple. The world is full of awe even without magic. Real nature is mysterious enough, powerful enough, and beautiful enough to inspire endless questions. The Bermuda Triangle may not be what old legends claim, but it still invites us to explore, to learn, and to enjoy the unknown with a peaceful mind. For many years, people around the world have wondered what the Bermuda Triangle really is. Is it a place of mystery, or is it simply a myth made bigger by stories and imagination? Tonight, as you listen, we'll gently go through the modern truth about this strange region. And as the words settle in your mind, you may feel a soft curiosity pulling you forward, like you're calmly floating through both fact and wonder at the same time. The Bermuda Triangle sits in one of the busiest parts of the Atlantic Ocean. Thousands of planes and ships travel through it every year without anything unusual happening. Yet, when one strange story appears, It spreads quickly. People share it, repeat it, and add small details that make it sound even more mysterious. Over time, these details turn into dramatic legends. This is how many stories about the triangle began, not with strong proof, but with missing information that people filled in with imagination. The modern reality is very different from the old rumors. When experts look at the reports, they find that most disappearances have clear explanations. Weather changes fast in that area. Strong storms can rise suddenly. The Gulf Stream, a powerful ocean current, can move wreckage far away, making it hard to find. Human mistakes happen too. Ships break down. Planes lose fuel. Radios fail. When all these pieces are put together, the picture becomes calmer and more ordinary than the legends suggest. But even with all this knowledge, something about the Bermuda Triangle continues to touch the human mind. Maybe it's because the ocean holds a natural mystery. It hides things beneath the surface. It stretches farther than the eye can see. At night, it becomes a quiet, endless space where anything feels possible. People are drawn to the unknown, and the triangle gives them a place to put their curiosity. Some people say the triangle is nothing more than a story that grew too large. They believe it stays famous because it feels exciting, not because it's dangerous. They point out that the number of accidents in the area is not higher than other busy parts of the sea. To them, the mystery isn't in the ocean. It's in the way stories are told and remembered. Others take a different view. They say that even if many events can be explained, not everything has a clear answer. They point to cases where planes vanished without sending distress signals, or where ships were found empty with no sign of the crew. They mention times when compasses acted strangely, or when pilots reported odd clouds that seemed too thick to be normal. These unexplained pieces keep the mystery alive, even in a world full of science. This is where the modern reality becomes balanced. Science explains almost everything, but it also accepts that some questions remain open. And those questions keep the Bermuda Triangle interesting in a soft, almost peaceful way. You don't need the area to be magical for it to be mysterious. Nature itself is full of secrets we don't fully understand yet. Think of the deep ocean floor, still unmapped in many places. Think of sudden storms that satellites can't always predict. Think of strange cloud shapes, magnetic variations, and the simple truth that technology, no matter how advanced, can fail. These natural elements create moments that feel unusual or confusing. When people experience them at sea or in the air, the stories they tell afterward can sound like something supernatural. Many scientists say this is enough to explain the triangle. They believe its mystery comes from a mix of natural power, human curiosity, and the way stories change as they pass from one person to the next. But they also admit something important. They admit that we still don't know everything about the ocean, and that tiny space of uncertainty is what keeps the legend alive. The modern world has tools that earlier generations never had. Satellites watch the ocean from above. Radar follows the weather. GPS tracks ships and planes with exact numbers. Because of this, accidents in the triangle have become extremely rare. When something does go wrong, the reason is usually found quickly. But even with all these tools, there is still something gentle and mysterious about the area. It's as if the legend has become part of our culture, shaping the way people imagine the ocean. This is why the Bermuda Triangle remains both a myth and a mystery. It is a myth because most of its stories are exaggerated or misunderstood. But it is also a mystery because the world is still bigger, deeper, and more powerful than us. And when you mix these ideas together, the triangle becomes more than just a place on a map. It becomes a symbol of the unknown. What makes this even more peaceful to think about is that you don't need to choose only one side. You don't need to decide that it's either entirely real or entirely made up. The truth can rest comfortably in the middle. Science explains almost all of it, but imagination fills in the small spaces that science hasn't reached yet. And that mix creates a quiet feeling of wonder. Now imagine yourself standing on a calm beach at night. The sky is dark, the ocean is wide, and the waves move in and out with slow, steady breaths. Somewhere far out there is the Bermuda Triangle, but from where you stand it doesn't feel scary. It feels calm, ancient, and full of stories that have traveled through time. Some are true, some are not, but all of them add a soft glow of mystery to the ocean. In the modern reality, the Bermuda Triangle is not a place to fear. Experts agree it's no more dangerous than other busy parts of the ocean. But it is a place that reminds us how powerful nature is, how small we are in front of it, and how much we still have not learned. When you hear the old stories, you may feel a little spark of curiosity. When you hear the scientific explanations, you may feel a bit more grounded. And somewhere between those two feelings is where the real Bermuda Triangle lives. It is a space where myth and fact quietly meet, where science stands strong but imagination still has room to breathe. It is a reminder that the world does not have to be magical to feel mysterious. Sometimes, it is enough to simply not know everything. And as you take in this peaceful understanding, the triangle becomes less of a riddle and more of a gentle reminder. A reminder that the unknown can be comforting, not frightening. A reminder that questions can be just as calming as answers. And a reminder that mystery and reality can exist together, side by side, in a quiet balance that helps the mind slow down and rest.